Hey guys, welcome back to Wayno Reacts. I'm Wayno, and today we're going to be talking about exactly where Robert Pattinson's The Batman should go moving forward. After an impressive $134 million opening, the best of the pandemic this year, it's all but announced that we will definitely be getting a sequel to The Batman. So what do you want to see in the next Batman installment? Which villains and which allies would make sense? That's what we're talking about today. We're going to kick it off today by talking about which villains I think would work best in a Robert Pattinson Batman follow-up. Now, some of these villains just wouldn't fit the mold of the Batman movie, just based on how grounded it is. So we can probably get those villains out of the way early on. The first of which is Poison Ivy. Now, while I would love to see a new interpretation, an updated interpretation of this villain, who actually becomes an anti-hero in the comics, I do feel like her powers are just a little too outlandish for this grounded of a film. Now, her ability to control plants and emit a pheromone that basically mind controls other people just doesn't really seem to fit the Batman mold. So, for that reason, I don't think Poison Ivy's going to fit in now. But as the Batman progresses and the story progresses, I think there is opportunity to kind of blur the lines between how grounded this film is and what other characters we can introduce and what other fantastical elements we can introduce. So, never say never, but for a sequel to The Batman, I don't think Poison Ivy would work. Now, the next character along those same lines, just not grounded enough to fit the mold, is Clayface. Clayface is a big fan favorite, and I know a lot of people want to see him on screen. We haven't had the chance to yet in a Batman film. But again, for obvious reasons, I don't think Clayface would fit into the grounded nature of the Batman. So we're just going to have to move on from Clayface. Maybe we'll get him down the road just like Poison Ivy. We'll have to wait and see. Next villain on my list is Ra's al Ghul. Now, Ra's al Ghul definitely brings some supernatural elements along with him. The Lazarus Pit isn't exactly a grounded element that you would expect to see in Matt Reeves' Batman film. But it is an element that I think could work. It's mysterious and mystical enough to not seem ridiculous, if that makes any sense. Ra's al Ghul would be a great antagonist to Bruce Wayne's Batman. I think the fact that he's in his own mind has noble intentions. You know, he wants to kind of protect the planet from people by eliminating a hell of a lot of people, incidentally. I think that's a really good juxtaposition to Batman, who's trying to protect his city from people. So I think Ra's al Ghul would be a really, really great villain to introduce a supernatural element into the Batman films. And I also think he brings along some other elements that are really interesting. Talia al Ghul, for instance, potential love interest for Batman that never goes as well as Batman wants it to. She's always stabbing him in the back or something. But also Damian Wayne. Damian Wayne would be an amazing addition to the film. And I really think this Batman, what I would like to see that's different than any other Batman, is really getting the Robin ball rolling as soon as possible. You know, the mayor's son in the first film was a great example of, you know, someone that the Batman could take under his wing and train and explain his view and perspective on things. But that person is also always an opposing opinion to Batman, typically, and it really lets some of Batman's faults shine through, which is an important aspect of the character. He's not always right about things, but he still is very set in his ways. So those conversations and those training montages and stuff, and the differences between how Robin or the eventual Nightwing is depicted in the film versus the way Batman is, would be very interesting as well. Damian Wayne's character is just so argumentative and set in his ways, just like Batman is. I think Batman's a lot less argumentative. He just says what he has to say, and that's all there is to it. But I think those characters would be really, really interesting, and they would set up some really big payoffs down the line, especially with Damian Wayne. So I'd love to see Ra's al Ghul in a Batman sequel. I don't think the very next Batman sequel is the best place to put him. Maybe the third or fourth film. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think introducing a supernatural element like the Lazarus Pit or using a character that we've already seen in a Batman film is the best approach for Matt Reeves Batman moving forward? Drop a comment down below and let me know what you think. Now, the next villain I want to talk about is Bane. We obviously have had Bane in the Batman franchise before, more than once. And the only reason I really bring this up is because at the end of the Batman film, Robert Pattinson pulls out a vial of green liquid and uses it on himself, and it acts similar to the way Venom would whenever Bane takes it. It's like a huge boost of adrenaline. Now, granted, his biceps didn't grow the size of watermelons like Bane's do, but it gave him what he needed in that moment. And it's just a really interesting thing that they added, because there's no way you can miss that similarity. Matt Reeves had to know that by adding that in there, fans would jump to that conclusion. So I don't know if that's an Easter egg. I don't think that was Venom. I think that was probably just adrenaline, something more grounded, reasonable explanation. But still, it begs the question, was that a seed Matt Reeves was planting for the introduction of Venom down the road? Is that someone that you guys would even want to see reappear again in a Batman film? Or have we already been there, done that, and you'd rather see a new character? Let me know in the comments below. Another Easter egg we see in the movie is during Thomas Wayne's campaign video, where "Hush" is spelled across the screen in big letters. It doesn't get more on the nose than that. But what gives this a little bit of credence is that the video is also a reward that's unlocked on the Riddler's website. The fact that they doubled down on the video and that Easter egg was so blatant makes me think they're planting a seed, potentially, maybe not. But Hush is a character that he kind of utilizes other characters to sabotage Batman. And a lot of the characters he used in the novel, we haven't seen yet. They haven't been introduced into this universe, into Matt Reeves' Batman universe yet. So I think Hush would be a fun villain to see on the big screen. And there's a lot of mystery involved there too, but I still think it's too early, so probably not for the next installment. Another opening for a character to be introduced was the fact that the DA was killed in this installment of the Batman. Now, we all know Harvey Dent becomes the DA and then eventually becomes Two-Face. We've already had Two-Face multiple times, just like Bane. So I'm not sure I'd want to see... I mean, it seems like a little too easy. You know, he'd fit in this universe so perfectly. He's a very grounded character. He's no fantastic abilities or anything like that. He's just a little damn crazy, and he got half his face burnt off, essentially. So you could definitely see that fitting the mold. But we've seen Two-Face a few times. I'm not sure I want to jump back into that. I think it's just something I don't want to rehash quite yet. If we were to have a villain that we've already seen like Two-Face, I don't know that I would want that villain to be depicted in the movie alone. In the comics, it's all the time. Issues feature multiple villains. And I know that gets tricky whenever it comes to movies. It's really easy to add too many people to the mix and ruin it for everybody, essentially. But I think that if we do see Two-Face anytime soon, I don't think he should be the main villain of the film. He should definitely have him in there for sure. That'd be great. It'd be great to see a new interpretation on the character, but he can't be the main villain of the film in my mind. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Moving along, this is more of a storyline. We have the Court of Owls. Now, that I guess the Owls would be the villain in this. And I mean, you could insert Harvey Dent into a Court of Owls story, I suppose. But also, the fact that the Waynes weren't perfect in the Batman is the perfect setup for a Court of Owls movie. They could be a part of that. Their history could be, you know, there's so many different ways you can use this Court of Owls kind of story. And implement the Waynes and even Harvey Dent. There are just so many different ways you can go about it, and I think the Owls are really cool counterparts to Batman. The fights would be really great. The hand-to-hand combat, somebody with a similar, I don't want to say suit, but they're definitely dressed in a similar manner. I just think it would be really fun. There'd be a lot of mystery, a lot of detective work, a lot of huge reveals as far as the Wayne's backstory and legacy goes, and then probably a really fun surprise ending. So I think that would be really fun, but let me know what you guys think. So this next villain is probably my favorite candidate for the Batman sequel, just because his story can be very, very grounded, but I also think the fighting between the two would be really, really fun and different, something we hadn't seen before. This villain has been featured in a different Batman film, but I think this interpretation would be so different. that familiarity wouldn't be there for people. I'm talking about Mr. Freeze. I think it's very, very perfectly acceptable to think that there's a scientist that's a cryogenic scientist trying to keep his wife alive, and while doing so, there's some type of accident or something, and he's injured in a way where his body doesn't metabolize heat the way it's supposed to, so he has to wear a suit to maintain his body temperature. And if we're talking about a scientist here, it's perfectly reasonable that he could construct all these contraptions and utilize the cold because, for multiple reasons, because of the way he feels about it, the way it's affected him. He almost uses what's poisoning him to hurt others. And then he's doing it for a noble reason as far as he's concerned. He doesn't want to give up on bringing his wife back or saving his wife. So I think there's a lot of heart to be felt there. I think you can definitely see the villain's perspective and the noble reasons he's doing the things that he's doing. And there's also a little bit of a fantastical element as far as the suit and the usage of ice skills that I think would be really, really fun to watch on screen. The cinematography in the first film was just like literally mind-blowing. And if you add ice to that, just think of how amazing it would look. So Mr. Freeze is probably my top choice moving forward. I think it takes things in a little bit less grounded of a direction, but just a baby step. And that's what the film needs, is just baby steps in the directions to where we can introduce characters with different power sets and stuff like that. You can't jump straight into a Superman introduction, obviously. But Mr. Freeze, I think, is grounded enough that he would fit the mold here. But let me know what you guys think. Is Mr. Freeze the best choice in your mind, or have I got it all wrong? And last but not least, we couldn't get through this without mentioning the Joker. Now, the Joker was actually teased in the film. Barry Keoghan in the end scene is talking to the Riddler, and Matt Reeves has come out and said, yeah, that's the Joker. So, but he also said that he has no intention of using the Joker moving forward. The story hasn't been written. He didn't put the scene into this film with the intention of setting up the second film. So I wouldn't expect to see the Joker in the sequel, even though I think he very well could be the next villain. I think it's really smart of Reeves to hold the Joker back. I think the Joker shouldn't be used in a direct sequel like The Dark Knight. I think the Joker should get the main title card. Let's keep him in our pocket and really lay a lot of clues and Easter eggs and things that we can look back on and that will just blow our mind and lead up to the Joker in the final installment of this Batman series. I think that's the payoff that we as fans would love to see, and then that's also the due the Joker deserves. But guys, that about does it for my villains on the list. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Did I miss your favorite villain? Did I misrepresent one of your favorite villains in your eyes? Or do you have an even better idea than I had for one of these guys? Let me know in the comments below as we move over into our ally list. Now, we can't talk about Batman without talking about Nightwing. Nightwing's someone we've wanted to see on the big screen for years and years and years. We got a tiny tease at the end of The Dark Knight Rises, and we do have Nightwing on the CW, which is a pretty good interpretation of the character, but it's definitely made for TV interpretation of the character. I'd really like to see, we need to introduce a Robin that eventually turns into Nightwing, and we need to do it immediately so that we can see this character grow up into Nightwing. I don't think just, you can't just introduce an adult as Nightwing. You can't just be someone from the GCPD who Batman likes. It's got to be someone that really knows Batman's perspective, and not just Batman's perspective while he's in the streets, but also his perspective when he's in the Batcave reviewing information. And they really need to be there to learn his detective skills and his fighting techniques and understand exactly what Gotham is at its core. So if we introduce a Robin soon enough, which I think needs to be in the next film, I think that would set us up for a huge payoff down the line, and an obvious eventual spin-off, most likely, for a Nightwing film that we've all wanted for way too long. Now, next we have Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon shot straight into my mind because the scene where Catwoman and Batman were working together to infiltrate the nightclub really gave me Oracle vibes. But in this situation, Batman was kind of the Oracle, and I was like, man, wouldn't that be great? But then we'd have to acknowledge that we're currently filming a Batgirl HBO Max movie with Leslie Grace. So I could see Leslie Grace. I've not seen the Batgirl movie, obviously, but before seeing it, just seeing some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, introducing her in the Batman would be I don't think it's off the table, just as far as her being able to fit into that world, as far as I can tell without seeing the movie or anything like that. But we have to acknowledge she has her own Batman. Michael Keaton's in that film, so that's most likely not going to happen, even though I could see the Commissioner Gordon of the Batman world being her dad. You know, that's not crazy to think. And they could work around that any way they need to. Anyway, so but Oracle is someone that's shot by the Joker and paralyzed. She's Batgirl, but then she's also Commissioner Gordon's daughter. She gets shot by the Joker. It paralyzes her, so she ends up in a wheelchair, and she kind of takes the behind the scenes aspect of things under control. She stays at her station, whether it be with a Batcave or at her apartment, wherever she's at, and she kind of just feeds the Batman information while he's out and about fighting crime, helping him along. And I thought that would be a really, really fun element to add to the Batman, because that's the opportunity to add a lot of interesting dialogue and reveals and back and forth and things of that nature while he's out and about. And we can see him swinging around, kind of doing his detective work versus just walking around police crime scenes. He can actually be doing his own detective work, like when he went to the nightclub himself as Bruce Wayne. And this would be a really fun element, kind of similar to Morgan Freeman in The Dark Knight, or Jarvis in Iron Man. It'd be a fun element to add to the film. I would enjoy it. But I don't think we can do the Batgirl, Barbara Gordon from the HBO Max movie. Do we want two Barbara Gordons in the DCEU at the same time? And how would audiences react to taking a beloved character like Batgirl and then shooting her and having her play a secondary role to Batman? I don't know that the audience would respond very well to that. So maybe there's a way around it. I think it would be interesting if we could figure out a way to do it, but let me know what you guys think. Now, up next we have the Huntress. The Huntress would be a really fun character to see as well. And the Huntress, in my mind, is kind of similar to Catwoman. Her and Batman don't do everything together. They don't necessarily always get along. She very much so has her own motives. But she's also a really fun character, and to see them cross paths occasionally and to get a Huntress spinoff would be so fun. The Huntress we've seen in the Harley Quinn film, to me, didn't do the character justice. I'd really like to see her, full potential in a Batman film and then a spinoff eventually. I think that'd be really fun, and I think that would be a great female perspective to kind of a Batman character on the big screen, not just on HBO Max. Now, last but not least, we have my favorite character, Superman. Matt Reeves has said already that he does not plan on he has no plans on including Superman anytime soon, or if at all, into this universe. This universe he's very, very intent on keeping it as grounded as possible, it seems. And Superman, obviously, is the opposite of that. But maybe towards the end of the franchise, if we can just get a flyover or an Easter egg, a newspaper article, a post-credit scene, anything to set up the appearance of Superman in this universe, or a new Superman that's equally as grounded as it can be. I just think it would be a really, really fun take on the character. It'd be a great addition to this franchise if there's ever a way to do it. And also, I just want more Superman, so sue me. But what do you guys think? Who's the next Batman villain? What allies would you like to see show up in the film? And what are your thoughts on introducing Superman to the franchise? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more videos. And as always, I'll catch you back here for more reaction action.